I'm going to share some tips on how to get a reliable recall from your dogs today. This is every dog owner's dream. We bring our dogs into our lives. We want to ensure that they're safe, but one of our biggest goals is being able to do more with them. And so having that reliable recall is so important. There's so many benefits to it, but ultimately we just want to be able to go out and enjoy our time with our dogs stress-free, and having that reliable recall is a big part of that. There's so many benefits to having that reliable recall. I'm going to go through some of the key ones that really matter and why we want to spend that time training to ensure that we can develop this recall. First off, so that we can keep our dogs safe. Safety is definitely one of the biggest benefits that we see from having a reliable recall. If your dog escapes out that front door, jumps out the vehicle, chases wildlife, all of these things that could happen. If you have a reliable recall, they're less likely to injure themselves or perhaps even get into a fatal accident. If you can call your dog before they hit the road running into traffic, that really matters. That's an important part of recall, and ultimately why we should be training it to ensure that our dogs are reliable with it. It also enables more freedom. When we have that trust in our dogs that they're going to come back to us when called, we're more likely to take them new places, take them off leash, let them explore new areas. We want to always be abiding by leash laws. That recall just enables more freedom with our dogs. We'll end up doing more with them. There's also peace of mind. When you go out and you don't need to worry about those things, you can go and enjoy more time with your dogs, and you're not stressing about keeping your eye on them. Although we want to supervise them all the time, you can relax, so if you're in a safe, open spot with your dog, you can enjoy your time with them more and not worry about them running off and you not being able to get them to come back. It really is about enjoying more with you. If you think about it, training does this with our dogs as a whole. So if you have a dog that walks nicely on leash, has overall good manners, comes when called, they're going to be able to do much more with you in your day-to-day activities. I want to go through some reasons why people struggle. Lots of people struggle with recall. So if you're struggling, you are not alone. If your dog is just easily distracted, perhaps they just need more foundation training. But I'm going to go through some of the more common things we see that people struggle with recall with their dogs. You notice that I'm saying why people struggle and not dogs. This is really important to remember. One of the most humbling things about dog training is that it's really demonstrated that most of the challenges I have with my dogs are because of me. So this means that maybe I have to do more training. I've got to practice. Maybe I've been inconsistent. I've confused them. And this is no different than what it is with recall. If your dog is struggling, it's because you've got some changes to make. You've got to set things up differently and help them be successful. And that's really it. I can't tell you how often people are struggling with recall just because they haven't really put the training in. Dogs are brilliant. And if we're consistent and clear and we make things fun for them, they do really well at this stuff. So it's important, if they're struggling, that you assess maybe your role in that. Have you actually spent the time training the skill, and have you gone through those steps appropriately? Really, that when I talk about going through steps appropriately, we often have really unrealistic expectations. So it's important that you start in that nice, quiet, controlled place. You lay the foundation, you teach the skill, you slowly add in distractions, then you take it out into the real world. Often we see people try it a couple times, get that the dog understands a general cue of come, and then they take them somewhere like the off-leash park and expect them to come out of play when they hear the recall cue. This is often what's happening as well. So you may put lots of training in, but perhaps you just haven't set it up in real world or with distractions. And so when you're putting your dogs in these situations, you're really expecting too much of them. This is how we set them up to fail as well. And so you want to build this stuff in slowly. You want to be prepared, have a backup if you think that they're not going to listen to you, which I'm going to go through. And it really is about setting them up to succeed versus setting them up to fail. Doing short little sessions, doing it in controlled environments, building in those distractions in a controlled way. Ultimately, working with a trainer will really help with this too, because sometimes it's difficult for us to be able to assess what maybe we've done, that we've set these unrealistic expectations or set our dogs up to fail. Another reason we see people struggle is that they pair the recall with a negative. So this might be, I get it, your dogs ran out the front door, they're embarrassing you. It's been really difficult when they come to you, you get upset with them because they ran out the door and escaped in the first place, and it's really stressed you out. However, in your dog's mind, they've come to you and they've been punished for it. You've been upset with them, you've been frustrated. Perhaps it's something like you call them to come and put them in a kennel, you put them behind a gate, all these things that might be happening. You call them to come at the off-leash park and you put that leash on them and you go home. That might not seem like much, but to your dog, they're being punished for coming to you. Coming to you means that bad things happen or the play or the fun is over. So be really aware of that. There's lots you can do to counter it. Something as simple as calling them to you at the off-leash park, pairing it with big rewards first, and then putting that leash on. Also being aware that you're not just calling them when the game is over. You call them to sometimes big rewards and then they get to go back to play. And we also see lots of people teaching their dogs to ignore come. So if you feel like you're going, come, 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 and your dog just ignores you, you're teaching them that come doesn't mean anything. I'm going to chat more about that later, but be really aware of that. Often we teach our dogs to ignore it. We don't intend to, but we've done a lot of calling them to come when they're not able to make it to us, or perhaps it's just too distracting. We just haven't spent the training on it yet.
Introducing a basic recall. From a short distance, say your dog's name once and then say come.
Duke, come! Yay!
When your dog starts to come to you, begin cheering them on. Once they get to you, hold on to their collar and offer big rewards. Give them a jackpot of treats and praise them for at least 20 seconds. Add the sit to ensure your dog stops and stays with you when you call them to come. Hold your lure by your knees as your dog approaches. When your dog gets closer, lift the lure up and have them sit. If your dog does not sit, use your verbal command. Once they sit, hold on to their collar and reward. Tips for success. To start, have your body lowered to encourage your dog to come with you. Always be positive with your recall. Never call your dog to you and punish them. This only teaches them that coming to you is a bad thing. Turn this into a game. Call the dog and run the other direction. Play hide and go seek. Have one person call the dog and run, and then have another person do this after the dog is rewarded, or call the dog to you for a fun game such as tug or fetch. Have fun.
So lots of great tips in that video. I'm going to give you a few more to ensure that you have good success with your dog with that recall. First off, if you have taught your dog that come means nothing to them, you can change the cue. It's not a bad idea to do that and start at the beginning. It could be here, it could be now, it could be bananas. It doesn't really matter what the cue is. You're just going to teach them a new cue that means come to you when called. Don't be cheap either. Use really high value rewards. You can keep them small. One large treat broken into many small treats is going to be more valuable to your dog. They can come to me and go, yes, good dog, and offer one big treat, or I can go, yes, good dog, treat, 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 treat. That's going to have much more value to your dog. You want to make sure that you're rewarding. It's a party. You're having lots of fun with this, and you're making it highly rewarding to come to you. You're competing with a lot. You're competing with squirrels, other dogs, wildlife, new smells, all these different things. So you want to make sure that you're highly rewarding when your dog does come to you. Have fun with it too. So don't just yes, treat, get silly, engage with your dog, maybe play a game with them, turn this into a game in training. Do lots of things where one person runs the other direction and calls the dog comes running over, gets really big rewards. Someone else runs the other direction and calls the dog and they come for big rewards. It could be for a game of tug. It could be for anything that your dog finds exciting. You just want to turn this recall into a game versus a serious skill for your dog. Really be aware of that offered attention too. So lay that solid foundation, build up that offered attention, reward your dog every time they look at you, they check in with you. The more that you do that, the more likely they're going to come because they're already building that foundation that looking to you and engaging with you means good things. So if you don't have great offered attention, go back to that a bit and really power that up. Members, we've got some great videos on this offered attention too. We've got some that kind of build it out on how to do it with distractions as well. So I highly recommend watching that if you want to really power up that offered attention. When I talk about the reward being rewarding, we've talked about high value rewards. Make sure that your dog does really love these. Sometimes what they love in the house might not be as rewarding when you're outside in the real world. Also be aware of how you're interacting with them. I see lots of people, their dog comes running to them and they go to say hello and do this with them, and their dog is kind of backing away from that and doesn't enjoy it. So make sure when your dog is coming to you, you're assessing it and ensuring that they actually find the activity rewarding and they're enjoying it. Set them up for success. So we've talked about the ways that how we set them up for failure. That setting up for success is really putting them in a controlled environment, perhaps, you know, using a long line with this. So when you're going out to distracting areas, you've got them on a long line so that if they do get a little engaged with something, you can use the long line to still get them into you to offer big rewards. It just provides you that bit of a safety net. It sets them up for success as well. Don't start this and take them to the off-leash park and expect them to come back to you. When you are beginning to work at the off-leash park as well, don't start it when they're in full play with another dog. Do it maybe when they're taking a break, when there's another dog not there, when they're just sniffing something not really exciting. So try to set them up for success by choosing to ask them to come to you when they're more likely to succeed. And finally, you know, use another cue in emergencies. So if you think that they're not going to respond. So we talked about changing the cue if we've taught them that it's irrelevant. One of the ways to avoid this when you're teaching it as well is if they are doing something you're like, oh, they might not respond to the recall cue because that's really distracting. Just holler at them, have a big party, run the other direction. That really helps too. Never chase your dog. You're not going to catch them. They're much faster than you, but they are likely to respond if you run the other direction. This is really difficult for us because we feel like we're leaving them, but that engages them and it tends to encourage them to come to you. Also going down to their level, standing up really tall is not super inviting. A lot of the times if your dog's just learning, you have a puppy, even just squatting down invites them to come to you, and that in itself encourages them to come in. So if you don't feel like they're going to respond, try some other skills, just have some fun. Whoop and holler, hey, puppy, 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 and you can clap, encourage them to come without using that cue. Doesn't matter how long it takes them to come to you as well, always make sure that you're rewarding them when they do. So as I mentioned, members, there's more videos on this. We go more in depth on this. We've got some clinics coming up on this as well. If you have any questions, you can contact us at training@dogmatraining.com. Thank you.